Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of the viewers. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of correlation and regression, we will be trying to understand the price dynamics in such a way that we get a good idea of the relative strength and the momentum in the instruments of our choice. We will be of course comparing this instrument in the same class. In Forex, we will be looking at the major USD currency crosses to see which one is having the best momentum on either side, whether it is bullish or bearish, it doesn't really matter. And afterwards, we will also be looking into the equity markets and see how the price action has played out in the European equity session so that we get a good idea of the upcoming US equity session. And if possible, we will also consider the futures of the light crude and the Brent crude to see the developments there. So let us now head to the JForex 4, the newly released trading platform from the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the Euro USD chart for the 5-minute candlestick time period, and this range I have drawn. This 48 Donchian channel represents 4 hourly range, whereas this 24 Donchian channel represents the range for 2 hours. And that's pretty simple to calculate, simple to understand. 24 multiplied by 5 minutes, we come at 120 minutes, that's 2 hours, and 48 multiplied by 5 minutes each comes to 240 minutes. That's that's 4 hours. And to look at the price dynamics, we are also considering this average price of last 2 hours, and this 12 SMA is getting us the average price for last 1 hour. So we have in consideration this average price of last 1 and 2 hours respectively, and also the range for last 2 and 4 hours. And if we simply look at this chart, it is the chart since 6:30 GMT. Now it is 15:30 GMT, so that's almost 8 to 9 hours. And if we look at it carefully, we can simply observe that there is a lack of momentum on either side. This range, which is around 40-45 pips, is holding well for last 7 to 8 hours, and even now there is no clear break on either side. And for that, we have to try to play within the range unless there is any significant break on either side, and only after that we will have the opportunity to go in the direction of the expansion of the range. But right now the things are pretty much in a sideways zone where we simply have to play within the range and try to profit from this scenario. So we have to look at the strength, the relative strength, and the momentum. So for that, we will be comparing the currencies like Euro USD, AUD USD, GBP USD, NZD USD, and also the inverted crosses like USD, JPY, USD, CHF, and USD CAN to see what's happening with the USD on the broader front to get a good idea whether the US dollar is weaker, whether it is bullish or bearish, and using that and then the relative strength of each of these individual currencies, we can figure out the opportunities which might come our way in coming hours. So far so good for the euro. There is a lack of momentum on the either side. It is simply trading within the range, but we have to look at the larger picture, and for that we will have to of course get a comparison done with euros price action with other currencies. So here the 4 hourly low, immediate prior low, was made at 10 GMT. Afterwards, it also went on to make this fresh 4 hourly high at 12:55 GMT. So let's compare this price data, price action data with other currencies. For AUD, the picture has been bullish compared to what we saw in the case of Euro USD. It didn't really touch 4 hourly low that happened during the early Asian trading session at 3:20 GMT. Afterwards, it has rallied almost 100 pips. The low came in at 0.6639, and from that level, it went on to rise to 0.6748. So that's the rise of more than 100 pips. And even now, it is looking stronger for the day. So in this respect, I think if any buy trade has to be taken, of course, the first preference will have to be given to the AUD USD compared to the Euro USD, which is simply going sideways. It is not really going anywhere. So we have the clear advantage with the AUD USD in terms of the buying. But if you want to go for the short sale trade if you are a believer in the strength of the US dollar. In that case, the euro will take the lead and AUD will have to wait for its consolidation first, and after that only we can change our mind. But as the things stand, I think the trade trajectory for the AUD USD at least lies on the buying side, and for us to change our mind, we will first have to see the AUD USD making low below the prior swing low, which is there at around 0.6710. And if it goes on to break below that, maybe we can think about going short after due consolidation. But right now, things are in a zone where it is simply leading the euro on the higher side. For euro, the clarity is not much really there. It is simply trading within the range, and all we have to do is go short closer to the high of the range for us to make money, for us to be able to make money in the euro. Now, coming to the USD, for GBP/USD, the trajectory is similar, but it did make this high, and afterwards it reversed those gains and it declined almost 100 pips, not exactly 100 pips, but closer to that. And then it is trading within the range, but closer to the low. So this interesting phenomena here. We have the buying opportunities, bullish tendency in the GBP/USD as well as clearly in the AUD/USD, but things are not that much bullish for the euro. So we will have to be careful for these trade. And as the things stand, I think it is not really advisable to go short in the GBP/USD. That distinction lies with the euro, and it is not even trading that strongly as is the case with the AUD/USD. So it is somewhere middle of the pack instrument, and I think it is better avoided on both the sides. It's not really giving us any lead on either side. Now, if we look at other currencies like NZD, for NZD, things seems to be stabilizing, and it has now tried to get closer to this prior swing low. So it will be interesting phenomena, and if it does go on to make a low below this prior swing low, then I think we will have to give up on the buying trades, and maybe after do consolidation, we can think about going short on the NZD USD also. But the shorting, of course, will have to be done closer to the highs of the day. And as I said, we have the better opportunities coming our way in case of the Euro USD. So the Euro USD is leading on the lower side, and NZD is actually still quite strong, and it is given the fact that it is still inclined on the buying side, we should avoid shorting it for now, and we should watch out. And only after this swing low is broken, and if in next correction it doesn't really go on to rise much beyond this immediate swing high, in that case we can think about going short on it. But right now, if we look at its relative strength and weakness, it made this high at 12:45 GMT. Let's compare it with the AUD to see which one is leading and which one is lagging. The AUD USD made this high at 12:50 GMT, and if we compare it with the NZD, the trajectory is almost similar. But now on the lower side, the NZD seems to be taking the lead, whereas for the AUD, the things are still pretty much within this range. So we have the lead on the lower side for the NZD, and AUD still, pardon me, sorry, and AUD is still the lead currency on the bullish trajectory. Now let us compare it back to the euro, and here the euro seems to be trying to break on the lower side, but as I said, any short sell trade which has to be taken closer to the highs for the day, not at the current levels. Let's consider the price dynamics of USD JPY, USD CHF, and USD CAD. For USD JPY, Earlier in the day, if you go back in time, it made high, day's high at 139.35. Afterwards, it went on to decline almost 150 pips, and from the day's low, it has rebounded somewhat by 60 pips. So the larger picture is of the bearishness, and right now it is seeing some correction. But I feel that we can still continue to look for short selling opportunities here, and if we see the USD JPY consolidating for next couple of hours while not really crossing above this immediate swing high at around 138.7. So in that scenario, we can indeed think about going short on it, but first we will need it to hold these levels and consolidate and not go on to break on the higher side. So we will have to wait and watch here. If we look at its relative strength and weakness, this is the currency cross, which is somewhere in the middle of the pack. It is not that bearish at the moment, and it is not, of course, bullish. So we will have to wait and see how things shape up moving forward. For USD CHF, let's see the trajectory. Oh, the USD CHF seems to be the lead currency on the upper side. So the CHF is actually the weakest of all the currencies which we have seen. First, it was euro. Now, if we compare it to the USD CHF, of course, the CHF is looking a lot weaker against the dollar, and here the dollar is going from strength to strength against the USD CHF after making this low during the initial hours of the European trading session. It has gone on to rise almost more than 60 pips. Keeping this thing in mind, I feel that if you are in favor of going with the strength of the dollar, if you expect the dollar to get further strength in the session as the session progresses, then the USD CHF should be your first preference for the buy trade for the strength of the dollar. As we are seeing, the USD CHF is actually leading even the Euro USD in its decline. The CHF is in declining phase, whereas the AUD is on the stronger side against the dollar. So it is better to avoid shorting the AUD USD or AUD against the dollar, but you can go short on the CHF and expect the USD to appreciate. And this is what the trajectory is looking like at the moment. Now, if we consider and compare it to the USD CAD, let's see what the lead is. And here, the USD CAD is even further ahead for the day with its high coming in at 11:40 GMT, and afterwards it has continued to make these higher highs. Now, if we go to compare it with the USD CHF, USD CHF made this prior 4 hourly high around the same time, but this is now lagging somewhat to the USD CAD. So we have the weakness in the CAD, which is even greater than the USD CHF. So here we have established this correlation where we have the CAD on the weaker side against the dollar, and we have the AUD on the strongest side against the dollar. So the trajectory of these currencies is diverging to some extent at least, and depending on what side of the trade or what side of the momentum you are with the dollar. Hello, Enrique. Sorry, I can't really understand the Spanish, so you will please have to write in English. Now, coming to the equity segment, as we have done this correlation analysis for the currency crosses with the clear winner on the bearish side being CAD, and on the bullish side, we have the strength, the strongest momentum in the AUD. So let's consider the equity side. We start with the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones is seemingly looking for a breakout on the lower side, so it will be an interesting scenario to watch out for as we are getting close to the US equity session. If we look at the highs of the Dow Jones Industrial Average futures, those were at 33,960, and we have now seen the Dow declining around 150 to 160 pips from the day's high. If we look at its trajectory on a higher time frame, it is simply continuing this bearishness after this swift decline in yesterday's session of around 1 percentage point. Now, after due consolidation, it is seemingly on the same path again with the cards stacked against it rise in coming hours. The things are more favorable for a further decline moving ahead as well, and for that we will have to try to get to the levels which are likely to prove helpful for any short selling opportunities. So here if we look at these Dow Jones Industrial Average futures, we have this break, and if we go prior to see when it went on to this declining trajectory, when it first saw this swing low formation, that was 11:30 GMT. So we compare it with the S&P 500, and S&P 500 made this low at 11:35 GMT. For Dow Jones, it was 11:30 GMT, and let's compare it with the Nasdaq. Nasdaq made the low at 11:40 GMT. So we have the lead for the Dow. The Dow is of the weaker or bit more bearish of all these three equity indices for the United States, and all these three equity indices are showing the signs of bears being in charge. So unless and until we have any significant break above this future high earlier formed earlier in the day during the European trading session, we I think will have to continue to work with this bearish momentum, and if we later in the day, if we get any sort of corrective move on the higher side and do consolidation, I think we will be in a position to go short on it, further short the US equity indices with Dow having the lead for this bearish momentum. So the first preference for any continuation of the momentum will have to be given to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, as it is leading both in terms of the timing as well as in terms of its magnitude of decline. If we compare it to the S&P 500's magnitude of decline, it is somewhat less, and let us consider the Nasdaq as well. For Nasdaq, it is even less than half a percentage point. So there is not much of a difference, but in terms of the timing, the lead is with the Dow Jones. Now let's consider the European equity indices, the Germany's DAX, UK's FTSE, and France CAC 40 in particular. For the DAX, the momentum is looking mixed. If we go back to the Asian trading session, it went on to rise, but those gains were short-lived. After the start of the European trading session, first it jumped on the higher side, but in coming hours, it gave up on all those gains and went on to make these fresh days low at 14,320. And now, after consolidating closer to these prior high, it is again back to the declining phase. So here I think, as is the case with the US equity futures, the DAX trajectory is also looking bearish, and all we can do is utilize this immediate swing low formed at 14,000 425. So this is the price range which can be targeted. So if we see this price being retested again with the buffer of say 30 to 40 points, and if you don't really see the DAX climbing back above this days high formed at 14,470, then we can indeed think about going short in the DAX. And on the lower side, then we can expect this trajectory to get it back again closer to the day's low or even further. But of course, the lead is with the US equity indices in these bearish momentum. So as and when you decide to go for the short sell trade, the first preference I think should be given to the US equity indices, Dow Jones in particular. And if we are not really in a position to take the short sell trade, then we can start looking for the opportunities where we feel that there is a possibility of a reversal. But for that, we will have to find equity index, which is having a stronger bullish tendency, stronger bullish momentum. So let us continue our comparison and let's go to the chart of the FTSE 100. The FTSE 100 is seemingly on the bullish trajectory, and it has continued to make these higher highs, and it didn't really correct much either. So we do have one index which is having a stronger bullish tendency. So if we see this current consolidation phase holding well, and if it doesn't really dip much below this immediate swing low around 7,490, so we do have the buffer of 10 to 15 points on the lower side. So even if it dips and then consolidates and holds the level, then I think we can indeed think about going for the buy trade if we don't really see any strong correction happening in the US equity indices. So for bullish trade, the lead is with the FTSE 100, but for the bearish trade, it is preferable to short the Dow Jones or any other equity index. But for equity index of the United States, but in the US segment, as we saw in correlational analysis, the bearish tendency is the strongest for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. For France, let's consider the CAC 40. The CAC 40 is looking like somewhere in the middle of the pack. It is not showing any strong momentum on either side. It started the day at the day's high, but afterwards it gave up on all those gains. It reversed the course, but it didn't really go on to make a fresh low either. So it is not showing any strong momentum on either side. It is simply trading within the range, as is the case with the Euro USD. So it is more of a consolidation phase with a limited range being in play. So I think it is better to avoid taking trade in the CAC 40, as we have the stronger bearish momentum for the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the stronger bullish momentum for the FTSE 100. Now let's see what's the development in the commodity space. For the commodity side, we have the Brent, and there were substantial gains earlier in the day of around 3 to 4 percentage point. And after those gains, I think here also we have the case of consolidation of those gains with not much of an price move in the last couple of hours. I think in most of the financial instruments, this has been the story for last couple of hours. The range has quite narrowed. We haven't really seen any big moves, and we have to wait for maybe half an hour more till the start of the US equity session. After that, the price action is likely to pick up, as we will have fresh money flow happening across the instrument, and that might propel either it on the higher side or on the lower side. And if we have to anticipate on which side it is going to move, so if we consider its current price trajectory, it is of course in the bearish tendency, the bullish tendency. And if we see this level, this low holding well for next couple of hours, at least 1 to 2 hours after even the start of the US trading session, then we can of course go for any long trade while keeping the stop loss little less than this immediate swing low. And we can expect this bullish trajectory to hold and take the Brent in course of time, even beyond this prior swing high established at 86.70. So that possibility is still quite intact, but first we will have to give it some more time and allow it to consolidate and hold above this immediate swing low established at 86.35. And whether we should be going long in the Brent or we should be taking a look on the light crude. For that, we will have to see the formation of the highs and lows. This low for the light crude came in quite close to the 4 hours. And if we look at the Brent's formation for the Brent, it is somewhat higher compared to this 4 hourly low. So if we compare its high and low formation, we will get a good idea of who is having the slightly stronger tendency on the bullish side, and that seems to be in the favor of the Brent, we have the strong tendency in the Brent. The light crude oil is also having the bullish trajectory, but only in terms of the strength. There is a slight difference, not much of a difference. And if you expect this bullish momentum to continue, I think we have the gains which are likely to be slightly higher for the Brent compared to the light crude oil. So that's the only thing to keep into consideration. Otherwise, the trajectory is almost similar, and we will have to wait for almost equal amount of time before we can think about getting involved for a new trade in the light crude or Brent for that matter. So that's my take looking at the price formation of these instruments, and I hope you have been able to understand the price dynamics and will be in a better position to make the judgment for yourself. Of course, nothing is final, and given the dynamic nature of the markets, everything keeps fluctuating from the time to time, and we do have to keep that uncertainty in mind. And then, while working with this limitation, we do have to take into consideration the relative strength and the weakness of these financial instrument to best decide on which instrument to take a trade on the bullish side or the bearish side. So that's the whole intention of the session. So thank you all for joining in. If you have any query or any idea to share, you can write back to me in the feedback section, and I will be more than happy to take the discussion forward. I'll be back tomorrow with the further assessment of the price dynamics prevalent at that point in time. So do come back. We will have a fabulous session tomorrow as well. See you tomorrow.